pamphlet. Does anybody need one? All right, if you'll open it up, there's 33 pairs of terms that over and over again show that there's a distinction between salvation and discipleship. I haven't said it in a while, but most of the Bible you will misunderstand if you don't know that there's a difference between salvation and discipleship. Because if you read discipleship passages thinking that they're about salvation, what are you going to conclude? You can lose it. What else? It's by works. Because discipleship demands work. Salvation, on the other hand, what's the role of works in salvation?
Belief.
None. It's not of works. It's a gift. But there's a huge problem. Huge problem all over to look at passages about discipleship and think they're talking about salvation. So that's why this is so important for us to be able to help people, help ourselves first, but to help others to see that. But also to learn how to be better disciples. Because in the process of seeing the difference, we need to take to heart, this is what Jesus wants me to do. He wants me to be what he's talking about being a disciple, a good disciple. So with that as a background, we were in the middle of number 19. So if you look at number 19. And before we go any further, Andy, you want to introduce your friend to us this morning? I know him, but I wanted you to introduce him.
It's Bill Brennan. He just got off the plane from Hawaii.
Bill, it's great to have you here today. Thanks for coming. All right, number 19, salvation. The issue with salvation is black darkness. Because if you don't have salvation, you end up in the black darkness that's referred to in Jude 1:13. When you die, you experience the black darkness, which is a metaphor for what? I heard it, what? Hell. All right? Then, under the discipleship column, the term, the darkness outside. And we looked, there's 3 passages in Matthew. We looked at the first 2. We'll probably come back to them. But I want to go to the third one, Matthew 25. We didn't get there last week. So let's turn to Matthew 25. And we'll look at this. I want to start with the last verse, verse 30, so you see where we're headed. And these are the words of Jesus telling a parable, telling a story to illustrate truth, biblical truth. Verse 30, cast the unprofitable servant into the outer darkness. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Now, can you guess what, just taking that verse out of context, just the verse itself, if somebody, as many people have, stepped in and looked at that verse by itself, what would some people think that the verse is talking about? Huh? Yeah, somebody going to hell. And that what would the outer darkness be? Hell. What would weeping and gnashing of teeth? Torment. Where? Yeah, torment. Where? In hell. Now I'm telling you what I would guess the common or maybe the popular interpretation of this is. So let's look at the context. Now to get the context, we won't get the context unless we go all the way back to 14. In your pamphlet I've got 14 to 30. So we don't look at the whole story, we may miss something. So let's go back to 14. Jesus is speaking. For the kingdom of heaven is like a man traveling to a far country, who called his own servants and delivered his goods to them. All right, now this is just the story. Let's not yet talk about what it represents, but a man traveling to a far country, he called his own servants. So what would be implied by his own servants?
They belong to him.
They belong to him. They're his servants. Okay? He delivered his goods to them. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to each according to his own ability. And immediately he went on a journey. Then he who had received the 5 talents went and traded with them and made another 5 talents. By the way, a talent is an amount of money. That was a certain amount of money. So I should have said that. He gave money to each of them. Did he give them all the same amount of money? No. And what do you think he wanted them to do with the money?
Invest it.
Make more money.
Make more money. Invest it, trade it, buy, sell, take it to the bank, just somehow make. That's why he gave the servants the money, so that they would make more money for him while he was gone. Okay. So I think we're down to verse 16. Then he who had received the 5 talents traded with them and made another 5 talents. And likewise he who had received 2 gained 2 more. And he who had received 1 went and dug in the ground and hid his Lord's money. After a long time, the Lord of those servants came and settled accounts with them. So he who had received 5 talents came and brought 5 other talents, saying, Lord, you delivered to me 5 talents. Look, I've gained 5 more talents besides them. His Lord said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord. He also, who had received 2 talents, came and said, Lord, you delivered to me 2 talents. Look, I've gained 2 more talents besides them. His Lord said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord. Okay, I want to stop here just for a moment. Now, obviously, this parable represents something, so let's stop and think. What do you think who do you think the man traveling to a far country represents?
Jesus is always a good answer.
I was going to say, in church, Jesus is always a safe answer. In this case, it's 100% right. So what's it mean, traveling to a far country?
Ascended to heaven.
Yeah, he left heaven, left earth, went to heaven, that's where he is. And in the parable, he comes back. What would that represent? Yeah, his return, okay? And well, in these first 2 servants, what's going on there? What does that represent? What, that he gave 5 talents and 2 talents? Resources.
Some people have more talents and their abilities than others.
Okay. It could be possessions that we use for him, abilities that we use for him, time that we use for him. Does everybody, what's significant about that one got 5 and one got 2?
We all have different abilities.
We don't all have the same talents and abilities, okay? What do you think it represents that he came back, verse 19, after a long time, the Lord of those servants came and settled accounts with them. What's a long time represent?
Time that he's been gone.
How long is it, at least?
It's been about 2,000 years so
Yeah.
far.
Yeah, so far it's been a long time. He's been gone a long time, hasn't come back. But after a long time, he comes back. That represents Jesus someday will come back and settle accounts with them. What would that represent? Judgment seat of Christ. And who is he going to settle accounts with? What's the term?
Servant.
Servants. Good answers, but the term here is servants. His servants. Who are his servants? Believers. Are all believers, and we're not there yet, but would you say that all believers have been given something with which to serve him?
Yes.
Is that safe to say? Yeah, it is. Every believer's been given something to use to serve Jesus. Possessions, time, abilities, opportunities. We could list them and talk about them for a long time, but every believer has something with which to serve Jesus, that Jesus gave him to serve him. And,
Can I ask a question?
yeah.
If they're his servants, are they saved?
What would we guess?
Yes.
Yeah, it wouldn't be unsaved. Unsaved people aren't his servants, but his saved people. So good question.
The 5 weren't saved, the 2 weren't saved, and the 1 wasn't saved, right?
Pardon?
They all saved, right?
You're getting ahead, and I like that, Kim. If they're all called servants, then what would we assume about them? They're all saved. If they all got abilities to serve him, what would we assume? They're all saved. So yes. Okay. So far, I've only gotten to talk about the first 2, and we will go to the third one because that's the critical part of this study today. But let's think more about the first 2. Okay, one got 5, one got 2. One had more abilities and possessions, and the other had less. How would you compare their reward? Why the same?
Because he said the same, exact same words, it's
Yeah,
well done to the people.
yeah, and
Nothing ruler over many.
yeah, let me see. Yeah, they both got the same praise. They both got, well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a few things. I'll make you ruler over many things. Now, a key phrase here is, enter into the joy of your Lord. What do you think he means when he says in verse 23, enter into the joy of your Lord? Enter into what? It says joy of the Lord, but let's think about what that means.
It implies a relationship with him that is really close and joyous.
Yeah. What did he, and I'm begging a question here, what did he not say? Well,
this is
enter. What did he not say? Enter into
heaven.
heaven. He didn't say enter into heaven. Why would he not? They're already there. They're already there. They're in the kingdom. This is the beginning of the kingdom. They're already in the kingdom. He's not saying enter into the kingdom or enter into heaven. He says enter into joy. And that's very important. Very important. It's
The
not.
parable starts out with that, talking about the kingdom of heaven.
Yeah.
So you know where you are, what it's referencing.
Yes. Why am I making a point of this? Why am I saying he's not telling them, based on what you've done, enter into heaven?
Because it had nothing to do with it. They were already in it.
Yeah. If that's what he said, then what conclusion would we come to?
You have to do good works to get to heaven.
Yeah, good works are what it takes to get to heaven. Serving him is what it takes to get to heaven. But he didn't say enter into heaven because of what you've done. He says enter into joy. Now, and Russ already touched on it. What would that look like to enter into joy? Think about it. What would it look like on that day to enter into the joy of your Lord?
Experience.
I'm hearing good things. What?
Close relationship.
Close relationship. Thinking about the event of the judgment seat. Reward. How are you going to feel if you're one of them? You're gonna feel happy or sad? Why?
Because you've been approved.
Made it. What, made what?
Because you've done well, you've gotten praise, and you had honored and done what your master had asked you to do.
Yes. Now everybody here, take this personal, please. Please take it very personal. Someday you're going to stand before Christ, right?
Yep.
At the judgment seat of Christ. And what's he going to do? In relation to this parable, what's he going to do when you stand before him?
Same exact thing.
Same exact thing.
What have you done with what I gave you?
Let's talk about what you've done with what I gave you. Okay? Now take this personal. If on that day he looks you in the eye and says, "Well done, good and faithful servant," how are you going to feel?
Great.
You could use the word here, joy. Enter into the joy of your Lord. That's what he's saying. Be happy that I could praise you and give you praise for being a good and faithful servant. And you're going to be happy if he says that to you. And that's what we all should long for, is that we live our lives today, that someday he would say that. How many of you here would like him to say that to you that day? Okay, good, we're tracking. Sometimes I have to stop and make sure.
Well, I think because this is a parable he's telling you about the sacrifice.
Right.
The talents that you, or how you serve as a disciple. That's what you become disciple.
Yeah, right. In the parable, only in the parable now, I want you to think. When he says, enter into the joy of your Lord, and he's come back from a long journey, he meets with his servants, he evaluates what they've done. The first two get this praise. Enter into the joy of your Lord. And I'm stretching a little bit, but I think I'm right. I can't help but think there would have been a celebration. He's come back, and now we're just celebrating his return and celebrating the joy. He has a banquet in our honor to celebrate, and it's a joyous time of celebration. So in the parable, I think enter into the joy of your Lord, could mean not just the personal joy, but the celebration, like a party. We're going to have a party to celebrate my return and your reward, and this is a great moment, a great time.
Well,
Yeah.
if you ever been a part of somebody that you enjoy so much that you just tickled to be around, and it went away and it came back, the biggest joy is that you're back with it.
Amen.
The
Amen.
biggest joy is his presence
Yeah.
more than anything else.
Yeah.
Because out of that presence comes a whole lot of stuff. Every tickle, every laugh, everything that
Yeah.
they ever did comes back. It's not the money.
Right.
It's the person.
Right. But the joy, yeah, I agree with you. But the joy is multiplied
Yes,
when he says, well done.
absolutely.
And you know that he's pleased with what you've done. Right. Okay, so we've talked about these first two. I think we need to, before we go further. The first two, did we already talk about who got the, yeah, we did. Who got the bigger reward? They both got the, why did they both get the same?
The same return.
It's a hit of the same.
They both did the most they could with what they had. The 5 did the most he could do with 5. The 2 did the most he could do with 2. They got equal reward because they did what they could do with what they were given. Okay? So, let's go to the third servant, because this is the one that is a little bit harder sometimes to grasp what's going on with him. So let's go to 24. Then he who had received the 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you have not sown, and gathering where you have not scattered seed. And I was afraid, and went and hid your talent in the ground. Look, there you have what is yours. Let's stop there for a moment. What did he do with his talent?
He hid it.
Hid it. Why did
He
he?
didn't use it.
He didn't use it. Okay? Didn't do anything with it. And he tries to give an excuse. He tries to say, well, I was afraid I might lose it, and then you'd be upset with me. I'm paraphrasing. So let me stop for a moment here. What did he do? How can I word this? Did he do bad? In the parable, did he do bad things? Did he go out and beat people, or did he steal?
He only did what he thought was best for his master. That's what he thought.
That's
It
what
wasn't.
That's what he said. Let's connect. Yeah, that's what he said. But so what? Yeah. Well, let's let the Lord give an evaluation here. In 26, the Lord answered and said to him, "You wicked and lazy." What?
Servant.
Everybody has servant. Okay, slave. So he's a servant. He's not somebody that's not one of the Lord's servants. He's a servant, but he's wicked and lazy. You knew that I reap where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed. So you ought to have deposited my money with the bankers, and at my coming I would have received back my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to him who has 10 talents. So Jesus answered. He was wicked and lazy. He just he didn't use what God gave him. Okay?
Brother Bob,
Yeah.
would it be too much of a stretch if you substitute disciple for the servant? You wicked and slothful disciple.
Well, I don't have a problem with that because there's good disciples and there's good disciples and not so good. We're all called to be disciples. So in that sense, yes, because we're not all equal in terms of discipleship. Yeah, I don't have a problem, I don't think, with that. Disciple usually is used in a positive sense, but it could be used in a sense that, well, we're all servants, but we're not all good servants. We're all disciples, but we're not all good disciples.
So was Judas a disciple?
Very good question. Was Judas a disciple?
No. Well, yes.
Come on, Wes.
He wasn't a believer.
Yeah.
Help him out, Wes. Help him out.
He might have followed Jesus, but it didn't work for him.
But this is important.
In the physical sense, but not the spiritual sense.
Well, what's a disciple?
Follower of Jesus.
A believer.
Believe.
Yeah, well, another
A pupil, a student.
a student, a learner, somebody that, did Judas learn from Jesus?
Yes.
He learned a lot more than any of us will probably ever learn. He was with him 3.5 years, day and night. He learned a lot of things from Jesus. So in that sense, he was a disciple. He followed Jesus physically for 3.5 years. But the Bible does teach that there are unsaved disciples, and Judas is the supreme example. So what would an unsaved disciple be today?
Someone that follows, does good things, but never believes.
Yeah? Would an unsaved disciple be somebody that goes to church? Could an unsaved disciple be somebody that studies the Bible? Could an unsaved disciple be somebody that teaches the Bible?
Yes.
And Judas was all of that, but he was never saved. So Hank, that's a good point. Disciple, this is something we've learned in our Bible study. Terms have different meanings in different contexts. Now, disciple always means a learner or a student, but in different contexts, it could be a saved person or an unsaved person. It could be a a faithful disciple or an unfaithful disciple. Could be a born-again disciple or a lost disciple. Usually, disciple, it refers to a growing Christian, but the term disciple can be used, and Judas is the classic example of how it can be used of an unsaved person. That's a new thought that we haven't talked about. Question about that? In this case, we have a saved, this third servant. Would we say so far that he's saved or unsaved?
Saved.
Why?
That's the service.
He's one of the servants. What's another reason?
He gave him resources.
He gave him resources to use. Very good. Any other?
Fact that he's here.
He's there.
He's there.
Where is he? Yes, he's at the judgment seat of Christ. Who's going to be at the judgment seat? Believers. Believers. Unbelievers aren't going to be brought to the judgment seat of Christ to be rewarded for their works. They go to another judgment. What's that? Yeah, great white throne, which is a whole other topic. All right, so let's go to let me start again at 26. His Lord answered and said to him, "You wicked and lazy servant, you knew that I reap where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed. You ought to have deposited my money with the bankers, and at my coming I would have received back my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to the one who has 10 talents." So again, what was he guilty of?
Being lazy.
Being lazy, yeah. Just didn't. The text doesn't say that he went out and robbed or lied or committed adultery. None of the sins that we think of as sin. But he was lazy. That's the bottom line. He was just lazy. He didn't use what the Lord had given him for the Lord. What might that look like today?
So are you saying that this guy could have been well established in the community, but didn't do anything with what God gave him?
Yes.
He'd be the richest man in the world, but he didn't do anything with what God gave him.
Yeah, right.
Look good, we got a big funeral for him at the end of his life, but when he gets before the Lord, he ain't got nothing for him.
Yes.
So, I just want my question.
Good question. What would it look like today?
Sound like we need to put our hazard lights on.
Huh? Pardon?
It sound like we need to put our hazard lights on.
Yeah. Warning. Pay attention, right?
Could be someone that accepted or believed in the exciting message, but didn't go to church, didn't treat his wife right. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can say about this guy that he just didn't do, that he should have been doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Didn't use his talents, didn't use his possessions, didn't use his abilities for the Lord, didn't use his possessions for the Lord, wasn't involved to help people to think about the Lord or help them to, or he didn't talk about the Lord. I don't know. There's all kinds of ways that we could think about this. Let's go to verse 29. So to everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have abundance. But from him who does not have, even what he has will be taken away. Now, what would that picture, what truth does that refer to for a believer?
Loss of reward.
Loss of potential reward, loss of reward. You can't lose the reward that you've laid up, because when you lay up treasure in heaven, it stays. But at the judgment seat, this parable shouts it, at the judgment seat, it's going to be shown what could have been. And the lazy servant will see, oh, I could have had what the other two had. I lost my opportunity when I was on earth to use what the master gave me for him And I realized what I lost. I lost what could have been. So then now we get to the challenge verse here. Cast the unprofitable servant into the outer darkness. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So, does everybody have outer darkness in their Bible? Everybody. Does anybody have any other translation?
Into the darkness.
That's it? So it says, cast the unprofitable servant into the darkness? Okay. So your Bible doesn't have outer darkness.
It says servant outside into the darkness.
Outside, okay, you've got outside.
Yeah.
Okay, listen to Dana's translation, say it again.
And throw the worthless servant outside into the darkness.
Okay. Does that sound a little different to say cast him outside into the darkness compared to send him into the outer darkness?
Yes.
In your mind,
Yeah.
what does outer darkness sound like?
Hell, sounds bad.
It sounds like,
Further
far away.
Yeah.
Outer darkness sounds like far away. Now, in the parable, now this is where you have to come back. In the parable, what happened? I mean, in the parable, did the guy go to hell? No, of course not. It's a story. Where did he go in the parable?
Further away.
Further
from
away
fellowship at this time.
Yeah. But where
He was
physically?
He was
Where the par-
separated from the people who did well.
Party,
Yeah. Was he,
where the
was,
party was going on,
Yeah,
where the lights are,
yeah.
he's cast out, way out there, and he can see the tent, and the lights, and everybody partying, having fun, but he's out there by his life,
The only problem I have with what you just said, way out there.
way out.
Why do you say way out there?
Because it said out. You'd have to get far away to be in the darkness. From
Do
the
you?
light.
Do you?
Can be looking.
I'm picking on you, but that's why I want to think. You've injected, forgive me,
Jesus' light's gonna be really bright.
you've injected way out there.
Weren't those 7 virgins standing outside the building looking in the window?
lamps.
Right there,
Who?
those 7 virgins,
Oh, that's another parable. Please, we
but they're in the darkness.
can only say
Looking to see
yes,
what's missing out.
yes, but please, we're going to take one at a time. Okay.
To use your example of the celebration of the first two, being invited to a banquet, this believer would not receive an invitation to that banquet.
Yeah, did he get to go to the party? No. Did he enter into the joy? No. The reason I'm picking on George, and I love it that George said that, because George is still thinking about way out there. Dana's translation says what? Again?
Outside into the darkness.
Outside. So how far outside do you have to be in the dark?
Just right out.
Just
Right outside that
Proximity.
Outside the door. Now, the reason I'm elaborating on this, which is so important, the English translations, almost all of them except Dana's, translate outer darkness. That gives a feeling that it's way out there. I've got my interlinear here, and it was interesting. I looked it up before the Bible study. It says, throw out into the darkness outside. That's literally what the words are. The darkness outside. How far do you have to go outside to get into the darkness? Just outside the door. And the reason I'm picking on you, George, is because, picking on you because it's for teaching purposes. What do you think he sees when he's out there?
Party.
You think that he could see through the window?
Yeah.
And the party? How does he feel? Yeah, I'll tell you how he feels. It's in the last part of the verse. What's it say? Would that make sense? Why is he weeping and gnashing his
Could
teeth?
have been there.
Regret.
Yeah. Weeping implies sadness. What does gnashing his teeth imply?
Regret.
Regret. oh, that could have been me. And I feel so bad. I'm just sad because of what the Lord said to me, you wicked, lazy servant. That hurt. And I could have been in there at the party, and I'm not.
Bob, isn't this an eternal condition? No chance of getting into the light?
Okay, in the parable, how long would the party last, and how long would the weeping and gnashing of teeth last? How long would he be in the dark?
12 hours.
12 hours.
As long as the party lasts.
What event is, what time frame are we talking about here in this parable? What, I heard it. The judgment seat, the Bema seat. How long does the judgment seat of Christ last? Forever? Okay, I'm begging my question here. Does the judgment seat of Christ last forever?
That's like a graduation party.
Yeah. The judgment seat of Christ is an event to evaluate, what the believer has done. When the judgment seat of Christ, well, I've already answered, it's a temporary thing. It just lasts a short time. Then we move into the kingdom. Will there be weeping and gnashing? How long will weeping and gnashing of teeth last? Just this short time. It's not going to last forever. We know that for sure, right? How do we know that?
He'll wipe away all tears.
Yeah, he'll wipe away all tears. He'll wipe away all the tears. So this is a temporary weeping and gnashing of teeth. Being in the darkness outside is temporary because it's an experience at the judgment seat of Christ. So, how long will the loss of reward last? Forever, because that is eternal. Their reward is eternal for each one of these servants. Their level of reward is eternal. But the judgment seat is a very temporary event. It's an event that's done and over with.
Say, Bob.
Yeah.
One other thing, and it's just me, back in my day when I went to a party, most of the buildings I went to, they might have windows, but they were covered up. You couldn't see in.
Yeah.
But you could hear what was going on.
Yeah. That's a good point.
But they kept saying that you could see, but you could look and not hear.
Yeah.
But when you hear joy and you hear how much fun they have,
Yeah.
it's almost worth it.
Good point. Whether he could see in the windows or not, he could hear it.
That's right.
Yeah.
When you think about faith comes by hearing.
Yeah.
And a
Okay.
whole lot of stuff comes by hearing.
Good point. Good point. All right. Does that make sense? Does that help? Questions or comments about the parable? Okay, with that in mind, let's go back to those verses we looked at last week. Let's go back to Matthew 8. And it's significant while you're turning. These are all in Matthew here that we're looking at. I think there's a consistent theme here about the darkness outside. Okay, we looked at this last week. But let's look at it again. Let's see, I had 5 through 13. I guess we'll go back to 5 again. Now when Jesus had entered Capernaum, a centurion came to him, pleading with him, saying, "Lord, my servant is lying at home paralyzed, dreadfully tormented." Jesus said to him, "I will come and heal him." The centurion answered and said, "Lord, I'm not worthy that you should come under my roof, but only speak a word, and my servant will be healed." By the way, did he have faith?
Yes.
Yeah, that was faith. Just speak the word. I believe, I have faith that you could heal my boy just by the word that you speak. Okay. Verse 9. "For I also am a man under authority, having soldiers under me, and I say to this one, go, and he goes, and to another, come, and he comes. And to my servant, do this, and he does it." When Jesus heard it, he marveled and said to those who followed him, who are they? What would we call them? Disciples. Assuredly I say to you, I've not found such great faith, not even in Israel. What's significant about the term great faith? What category of faith? Where would you fit great faith? Salvation or discipleship? Said discipleship. It takes simple moment of faith to have eternal life, but great faith is a growing faith. It's a strong discipleship faith. Anyway, verse 11. I say to you that many will come from east and west and sit down with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. Where will Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob be in the kingdom of heaven? Close to Christ. We know that from many passages. Are they going to be rewarded, highly rewarded, or low rewarded? High reward. Many will come from east and west. What would that imply? I heard it. Gentiles. Non-Jews. Because that's what Jesus said earlier. I've not found even in Israel this great faith. This is talking, he's praising the centurion who was a Gentile and said even Gentiles like him will sit down with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. And that implies reward, a place of reward, a place of joy, like we saw in the Matthew 25 parable.
Bob, is he talking about the judgment seat where these people from the east and west are reclining with Abraham and Isaac and Jacob?
Well, he's talking about after the judgment seat in the kingdom as a result of the judgment seat.
All right.
Yeah. Verse 12. But the sons of the kingdom will be cast into the outer darkness. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Once again, who has outer darkness in your translation? Does everybody have outer darkness? Dana, do you have outer darkness?
Outside into the dark.
There, he's got it again. What translation is that?
NIV.
NIV. Well, NIV doesn't always get it right, but in this case, that's pretty good. Because this is the same terminology. It doesn't say outer darkness. That's not a good translation. The literal translation is the darkness outside. So in this case, what would it mean to be outside of what?
The closeness.
Closeness. Are there? Well, who would the sons of the kingdom be? We looked this up last week in another.
Unfaithful, believing Jews.
Yeah, but sons of the kingdom. Yeah. Okay, good. You're giving a bigger answer than what I was looking for. Are sons of kingdom born again or not born again? Born again. We saw in another passage. Sons of the kingdom. In fact, it was the one we looked at last week, which was chapter 13. Sons of the kingdom are just what we would expect. They're born again believers who will be in the kingdom. It'd be very strange to use the term sons of the kingdom of somebody that wasn't in the kingdom, right? So when it says sons of the kingdom, would we assume that they're in the kingdom?
Yes.
Yeah, but they, at the judgment seat, when it's revealed where they fit in the kingdom, and they realize, I'm not going to be where Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are. I'm not going to be in the closer circle with Jesus. How are they going to feel? Weeping and gnashing of teeth. It's going to be sad. This is a judgment seat experience in verse 12. Now, Josh, verse 11 is a kingdom experience, but verse 12 is a judgment seat experience, which is maybe what you were asking.
Well, yeah, why are you so sure that verse 11 is a kingdom and not a judgment seat experience?
Because it says in the kingdom of heaven.
Well, the judgment seat is in the kingdom of heaven.
Well, it's debatable whether it is in the kingdom, but it's really before the kingdom really gets in gear, because every believer has to be given their role and their place. Yeah.
So you're saying 11 is
True.
is after the judgment seat, and 12 is during the judgment seat.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, that's what I would say. So this is the exact same terminology as what we saw in chapter 25, being cast into the darkness outside, not in the place where Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are, place of reward. And the sadness of realizing that at the judgment seat, weeping and gnashing of teeth. All right. Question about the darkness outside. Does it make sense? Darkness outside.
Why do you think this is so controversial? Because most people don't teach it.
Because of where I started today, this is classic, where people look at discipleship passage and make it a salvation passage. Classic, right? These passages are used, I'm sure, widely as salvation passages. And if, based on what we saw, even in this passage, if we're talking about, if there's salvation passage, what would salvation depend on? Work. And that's why there's so many false gospels out there. People preaching salvation passages as disciple passages and teaching that salvation is earned by works and it can be lost. When, in truth, discipleship is earned by works and discipleship can be lost and reward can be lost. But not salvation. Salvation's free. It's apart from work. I'll close with that thought. Let's pray.